Hello, everyone. Larry Bailey here, Awesome Technologies, Inc. Welcome, welcome. It's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. That means we're going to get together as a community. Let's see who's the first to hit chat. Everybody's rolling in, and it's Kevin Metcalf. Way to go, gang. Thanks for coming. As a community, we meet here at Mortgage Community every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We generally have a topic, but this is honestly an open Q&A. So the way that you interact with the conversation is either by using the chat feature here found in the community, or if you have something you want to talk through or share on screen, just let me know and we'll bring you up as a speaker. You don't have to have a camera on. I just always have a camera on me, but you can just do audio if you want. No big deal, no pressure. Today's topic is checking out your personas, organizations / users, milestones, and user groups. And this is a continuation of our self-health check series. Say that 3 times fast. And really, it's me just kind of reinforcing some concepts that I do share with clients when I work with them directly, or when we do a workflow or a settings review. Some people like to call it a health check. I don't necessarily like that. From a professional standpoint from my side, because it goes well beyond what is healthy. It's really all about best practices. So that's why I want to bring this thing to you. So I think that kind of gives us the introduction. Quick question. Who is actively diving into Encompass web settings? Let me know in the chat, like, who's actively doing this. I am now working with at least potentially, we're working with a couple of companies from a B2B side where we're actually supporting the vendor to help you as a customer deploy Encompass Web for EPC, because it's big, right? And so a couple of the usual suspects, and there was a question here in the community earlier that was thanks very much. I think it was Robert who answered. He gave us a really nice summary of the automations that he's putting in, which was super awesome. And he listed out 4 of those things. You'll find that in the community if you search for have you built a workflow engine rule yet? And really what that is talking about is, in order to build a workflow engine rule, you don't have to use EPC stuff. You can use a workflow engine rule for enhanced conditions. You can do it for also for task-based workflows, which I'm super pumped about. And of course, you can use it for EPC, Encompass Partner Connect, for ordering services, and then also updating services, which is really, really interesting. So some of the chats, looks like Patty and Jill are setting things up in EPC, which is great. Luba's setting up OB and MI companies. Luba, I'm curious with that, are you going to be using the load balancing or the order balancing for the MI companies? Or are you just going to let your folks kind of pick and choose? Kevin's trying to set up some notifications. I can tell you that I think Jill and I went round and round on notifications. First of all, set it to priority, I think is a lesson learned, right, Jill? We're still fooling around with that to see what can work. So definitely set the high priority, but you only get 150. So it's like, I don't know if that's a good number or not a good number. Yeah, Amy, set it to high priority and see. We're going to actually talk about this as a group. So for those that don't know, we actually have in the community, there's a course you can sign up for. It's a one-time charge. It's $4.99, and it's Mastering Encompass Web Essentials. So basically, it's me running through all the settings like I normally do for all the settings, except we focus in on just web. And not only just the settings, but twice a month we meet as a group. There's an open chat line to help you with support. And I go in and help you understand how to make the move from desktop to web. Because we've been on desktop now. I actually talked to one of the original, I haven't verified this, but I met a guy and he told me he was part of the original sales team with Sig and Jonathan from Encompass back in the day. And he swears it was 2004. I've been trying to hunt down people who were still alive that for when Encompass came online, but he says it's 2004. I think I got the thing in 2005. But regardless, my point is that it's decades, right? It's pretty damn close to 2 decades of everybody using desktop. And as much as everybody was begging for the web, and now the web is here, everybody's kind kind of getting jittery. So our job is to kind of keep them smooth and get them through it, that kind of a thing. So Kelly asked, Angie said only for EPC services. Kelly says, I've done some vendor setup with EPC. So who's really psyched about all the data that you can get in there? And then we're going to get back on topic. I just love talking about the web because I'm just a geek. But how about all the data, right, Jody? I mean, Jody, who are you guys using for appraisal vendor? Like I looked at the Rigora integration. I looked at Lodestar's integration. I've looked at, CoreLogic's integration with Mercury Network. Like finally, all this stuff is phenomenal, the data writing back. So I'm curious who's going to write like the mother of all workflows that spawns other automation like conditions. Like one of the fields I pointed out in the recording in the class was Mercury's integration pointing out a condotel. So now you can actually, you hope your underwriter would catch that on an appraisal, but if it's in the data coming back from Mercury, bang, you can fire off an enhanced condition to make sure your underwriter knows that it's a condotel. Maybe that's okay, but maybe it's not. And so that's the way it runs. Let's see, going back to the notes here, we talked about setting your notifications up to priority. Kevin says, finding out some vendors say they're running EPC aren't really ready for prime time. Absolutely, it's brand new, Kevin. Cut them a little slack. They'll get it. They got till October 25, right? Lubis says, does web settings course restart from the beginning at some point? So you can join the web settings course anytime you want. It's self-serve videos. Every time we do an update, just like in Mastering Encompass, I'll update the videos for the course, for the lessons as needed. But you can jump in anytime. There's no starting or ending. We meet, again, twice a month. There's always ongoing conversations. So feel free to join, or anybody. And Amy said that for me. See, Amy is just on the ball. Mercury has put theirs on hold, not adding more users. Kevin, thanks for the update. Jody says, plus no longer needing users to input items, so more accurate is data. Yeah, Jody, and it's really important. And I do talk about data being trustworthy. And so if anybody who runs a database understands that data's got to be trustworthy. And if you're getting the data from the source, why are you letting anybody else touch the data? Like, stop. Right, Jody? All right, good deal. So let's go back to topic here. We got about 21 minutes left. Show of hands, how many of your users have more than one persona? And I'm going to put this in buckets, right? Because nobody's 100% only one, right? So 50% have one, 30% have one, 90% have one. Truthfully, I don't know what the hand, you're saying I don't know what the hand means. 0, we only have one. No, you don't, not personas. Get out of here, Jolene. No way. Maybe you do. I don't know. I forget. It's been a while. But, show of hands. Oh, that's pretty literal. Way to go. Show of hands. I love it, you guys. You guys are awesome. So listen, I think it's honest if you're an average company, in all sincerity. I think if you have 75% of your people have more than one persona, you're very average. It is very uncommon for companies to really appreciate multiple persona syndrome, mostly because it hardly ever affects them. All right. And so I want to really kind of stress this idea in the self-health check. One of the first things I do is I'll go into, and I'll share a screen here. I'll go into their environment, and you should do this too. But go down into system administration and go into all user information. Now I've hidden a bunch of the fields to protect the innocent, but you can kind of see here when it goes in alphabetical order, right? And so, you can see this is like a TPO company, but look at this guy. Now, you're like, why do I have this? And the reason why we have this is because before today, somebody created these different personas, and they contain something unique that the others don't. And we know that personas give, right? If one setting is yes, and they give that persona to that person, bingo, bango, they can do the thing. And so what I'll do is I'll put that in order. And this one's big. It's 1,739. You can export everything to Excel if you want to sort, which is what I'll typically do. But where I get into trouble is something like this, where you've got loan officer, sales manager, branch manager. And I'll guarantee that loan officer shouldn't probably be doing something that a sales manager can do in a file. I also don't really know what a sales manager persona needs to do. And if we, so that's one that comes up. Loan processor versus an underwriter versus an opener. I'm like, my head's spinning. Like, does that mean that this person can clear conditions even though they're opening files? I'll see this a lot in branches. So when somebody's got a branch and they need to be able to do more that. Now, so Luba says, I bet it's so they can see pipelines. And I hope you're right. But the problem is what we see happen, of course, is people can do things that they're not supposed to do. And we typically only find that out when they do something that they weren't supposed to do. And then somebody gets upset. The company probably loses money. Something gets hurt, whatever. So you have that. And then, the other one that's typical is underwriting. All right. So if I come down into underwriter, underwriter, manager, this is usually an easy one to consolidate. So Candace says sales managers generally have visibility to more reports, but remember, reports are a resource. Resources are managed in user groups. So you're never going to find something in the user group pertain to a persona. Just keep that in mind. Like, this is all about what can you do in a file kind of a thing. Angie says, if we have roles tied to personas that we no longer using, is there any reason to keep them? The problem is with a role, Angie, remember that, so if we, and I can't bop around because this is like a full production thing, but remember that a role is made up of one of two objects in Encompass, a persona or a user group. So if you have a role that's there that's not being used, you can simply remove it from, the first step is to remove it from your milestone template, so it's no longer being put in any file moving forward. And if the role is no longer being used, but the persona is still there, that gets a little bit tricky. Or if it's tied to a user group and that kind of thing gets tricky. If you're really feeling bad about it, if you really want to make sure you kind of close up all loose ends, create a user group that says deactivated or no longer needed, and then assign that user group to the role you no longer need. And then, of course, remove it from your milestone template. So it's not in any file. It's not tied to any real people, that kind of a thing. So maybe, Angie, that helps. But this kind of brings me into the next thing, which is the organization/users. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing for a second because I'm going to go out of this environment. I'm going to go into a different one that is not so built up, so to speak, because I want to show you something that is important within the organization/users. And let's see if I can figure this out. Let's close this over here. This is a brand new Encompass. If you haven't seen one of those ever, congratulations. I know they're rare sightings, but let's see here. Share this, and we're going to get this guy up, and we're going to get this over here. So administration, like, this is how it comes out of the box. And what you're witnessing here is verticalness in your tree. So your level 1 is administration. Again, you can call it's so fast, Brian says. Gee, I wonder why, Brian. But administration is level 1, operations and all these are level 2, and then you get into processing, underwriting, level 3. If you go into your environment and you've got a tree that runs wide, that's a huge problem. And that what that's showing you is that your Encompass is leveraging organizational hierarchy to distribute loan level access instead of using user groups. So between the all users setting and then I come up over into organization/users, what it does is it gives me a sense of what happened before I got here and what's the methodology of what's being used. Because if I see this being misused, then I know hands down my user groups are going to be misused, hands down. And so we'll talk about that in a second. But for those that are watching this, does anybody go wide? And I typically see this in branches, and I typically see this misused because they've got processors at the branch level, and they're trying to build this little step ladder out to the side for file access, and it's the most wrong way to handle this setting. And I'm curious if anybody's dealing with that. So Jill says ours isn't wide, it's upside down. Sales is on top. All right. So Jill, what you're experiencing again is somebody decided that the loan creation needed to be distributed. And although yours, Jill, is not necessarily a wide problem, it's still a misunderstanding of how loans work. Most successful companies create their organization/user folders to be organized in the as if you were looking at your HR folder. So 4 wide's totally cool. 7 wide, I start to get a little bit worried because it's not mimicking anything. I want to be able to, as an admin, I want to be able to go in and if I bring in a new hire, what are they? What's their job title say? What's their function in the company? And if they're an underwriter, I'm going to group them with all the other underwriters. If they're a processor, I'm going to group them with all the other processors. Now, here's where it gets interesting. If natively we want to make sure that they don't see everybody else's loans, which is appropriate, then you want to make sure that your sales is completely separated from your operations this way. And the reason why this is because natively, no one here can see any loans from here unless you do it properly, which is through user groups. That's the appropriate way to do it, gang. And this is the way I train, and this is the way I fix Encompasses. So I want to bestow this information on you. And what you need to be aware of is when you do it this way, you can then start to effectively use the disabled user folder, which is a best practice of where to put your folks after they're no longer working at your company, if you're using your user groups properly. And so Jill says a lot of our settings are a result of misunderstanding of previous admins. Jill, it's everybody. It's not just you or your company. It's everyone. And it's the reason what honestly makes me keep doing this job is because there are, years, 15, 16, 17 years of old, the old tales shared and urban legends. And I heard this once, and I talked to that guy over there, or that girl over there, and this is what they did. Yeah, and I'm trust me, I'm not like the Oracle. I'm just sharing with you how it was designed. I've been working with ICE for a very long time directly, and these are the things that usually people don't talk about. They don't train for this in ICE's admin course. I've been training this way for 8 years. And it's the right way. So Candace says, we worked on ours when I got here, but it could use some more work. It's not horrible, but could probably be better. At my previous place, I did want to do what you're doing, but I never quite got there. Before you do this, gang, check your user groups. Because if you go to fool around with your organization, or I always call it organizational hierarchy, sorry, old dog, organization/users setting, if you mess with that, remember that everybody here, if you're in this downstream, so let's say for sake of argument, I had a salesperson here. Everybody down here is going to be able to not see up, right? But if I had processing here and I had sales here, everybody in processing would see down. That's native. That's how organization works. The reason why we do it this way, so if I had somebody in sales here and they created a file and now they no longer work at the company, so I put them in disabled, guess who can't see that loan anymore? People in this folder. And so when you look at this, you want to be very cognizant of how it's actually designed to work. So as you do make changes to become more efficient and more effective and more organized, you're not going to break your team's ability to find those loans. So getting over to user groups, I have no qualms about making a bajillion user groups. You just got to maintenance it. So for those that have watched me before, definitely get comfortable with your settings reports, because in your settings reports, you can create these reports for both for organizational level as well as user groups. And that helps you out a ton if you have a bajillion user groups. Yes, that's a real number. And what you're focusing here on is the underwriter user group should contain the underwriter organizational folder so that if I add anybody new to that, they're already in the user group that I need them to be in. That's the reason why we do it this way. Candace said, so is there a cap to user groups? I think in last week I put up a thing, and I actually just remembered I never put the image in the replay chat, so I'll have to do that. There is a generalized limit, and are you going to measure the difference? Highly suspicious of that. It's more about maintenance. So I've never really counted the largest one, but it scrolled down pretty far, and it was for a TPO company, and it was for they had a lot of different branches. They had a huge retail presence and also a huge non-retail presence. And the importance is that they needed to make sure that specific members saw specific loans and specific folders. So, Sean, I'll get to your question in 1 second. So one thing I will tell you right now, look in your all users user group. If you have all folders selected, that's a problem, because that means you could never take away somebody's folder from anywhere else. Remember, user groups, like everything up in the company user setup, is give. You can't take it away. So if you give them access to anything in the all users user group, like loan templates or all your resources, or you build your role list view, that's a problem, because now you can't manage it as an effective administrator to only give something when they actually need it. Sean says, so do you have a quote ideal setup combination of hierarchy and user groups? Yes. So when I go into organization/users, my ideal setting is as vertical as possible and disconnected as possible in English. I want to make sure, it's frozen now, I guess I broke it. I want to make sure that I keep my my super admins are the only ones that go in the top folder. Nobody else ever goes in those, ever. Only super admins. Then I get into like operations. I'll usually have an executive folder and then operations, and I'll break down operations into their department folders. And then I'll get into originations like sales or TPO account executives or something. And I'm keeping everybody split at the second level, so I don't have to worry about some unknown randomness loan file access. And then what I do, Sean, is I go into user groups, and then I create a user group so I can say specifically that anybody in this folder will have access to all the loans created down, and they have full edit and they have full access. And I can rest assured that that's all they see. And that would be different from anybody else. One thing I will remind you, as a super administrator, that doesn't mean that you have access to everything in user group settings. Super administrator is not a persona, but it just means that business rules don't apply to you and you can see all the settings. But in terms of loan access, if for some reason you can't find a loan or you can't get into a certain resource, like a custom print form or something like that, it's because you belong to a user group that doesn't have access to those resources. Just in case that ever happens to you, just remember, just because you're a super, you still got to worry about user groups. Hopefully that helps. And Candace says, Luba, that's what I did. I'm sorry. Luba says, is user group the right way to give somebody vacation coverage? Yes, that's exactly what that is. You can temporarily say, just like Candace said she did, you go in and you might want to create like, Larry temp user group. And I would put, Johnny, who's going to cover for me. Johnny's going to be in the member. Johnny's going to have access to Larry's loans in the folders that I need. And that's the only change. And then, then when I come back from vacation, I come in here and I delete it. Now, I'm a huge advocate of not deleting anything. I've said that many, many times. This is an exception. Like everything else has exceptions in life. This is an exception because this is a temporary setting that has no need. If I kept every temporary user group that I ever created, the list would never end. And it's a bad policy. But it's the right way to go through it, because one of the things I don't want to do is do this reassignment thing. Like, you don't want to pull me off as a loan officer just to put somebody else on, just to pull me back. Sean says, I want to explode when the employee said, I'm just going to give so-and-so my password. Yeah, well, why not just reassign the loan and give them your commission too, right? User groups are the right way to do it. And it's maintenance. And so I create a task wherever you're creating your admin tasks to make sure everybody knows it's being done and everybody knows when to undo it. So Candace says, mine was vacation cover and I just removed members. Oh yeah, you could do that too. Either way. Yeah. If you want to keep one that says vacation coverage, and the challenge with that is I usually find it's hard because I can't put more than one person in the members tab to have access to the loans, unless they're all like vacation processors and you're totally cool with everybody seeing everybody else's loan. Again, every company is still a bit different on that end. So, do what's right for you on that, and see where it goes. Does anyone have any questions? Again, I'm following chat here, so let me know if you have any questions on that part. Last one I was going to talk about is milestones. So on milestones, again, this is like brand new out of the box. You only have two, right? Out of the box, you have a broker milestone template and a default, right? Bottom one's always default. Gang, please, 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 always put your actives at the top. I don't know why ICE tells you differently. I don't subscribe to that. I disagree with that openly. That's number one. Number two, please don't change your default. If you're changing anything, please, all you have to do is replicate it, and you want to create your sunrise and your sunset, right? So if this company's going live here soon, and if on July 1st they want to change their milestone here, or they want to change their rules there, we're going to create a new retail version effective July 1st. And if they change your mind October 1st, then we're going to sunset the one that I created for July 1st, and then all new loans will hit the new one. Remember, milestones go top down. So number one, number two, et cetera, until it hits the bottom. It's looking for the first yes. So I'm always going to tell you, put your most active loans at the top, followed by the least active, followed by your inactives. Patty, I'll go back to hierarchy in 1 second. Linda says, what happens if you change your default? Can you change it back? Yeah, but remember, if you change your default and every loan hits the default, you can't go back. There's no place to go back to. So you can't move, like Candace says here in chat, you can't move it. So that's the reason why you don't change your default, because it will literally affect every loan, including all the loans that you've closed forever, if no other template applies. This is the reason why you create replications, right? Copies. If this one's going to be active, you activate it, you keep it at the top, you set your milestones, set your roles, and be done. So hopefully that makes sense for you, Linda. And that's why I tell everybody, like, I see people working on default and I'm like, stop. Like, how many times have you changed your default because you thought that's what you were supposed to do, and then every other loan that you go open and they try to hit save, it brings up the milestone template change template. All right. Last thing I'll say on milestones is I do see sometimes in in loan template sets, I do see some people putting in a milestone template in their loan template sets. That's totally fine if you know what you're doing. That puts the loan into manual milestone template mode, and the only way to get it out is to apply a loan template set without a milestone template set. So if you're doing that, what you're actually doing is undermining your whole point of milestone template business rules, which is this whole thing. It's actually the first business rule in Encompass. So definitely best practice on milestones. Keep them out of your loan template sets. Build them in here. Make sure they go in order from top to bottom as far as most active, and then least active, and then inactive, and then default. And if you are really savvy, what you'll do is you'll set your default to be something that is obvious it's the default. So that way you can go figure out why your actual milestone templates aren't working properly. Robert says, yeah, learned the hard way on that one. Sorry, Rob. Luba says, so if we did that, how do we fix and remove it so it'll start applying new loans? You create with your business rules here. So you're typically going to pick, whether you're 2025, I think that's right, 2025, isn't that file started date? Yeah. Either use your start date. That's usually a good one. I believe in that field ID, not milestones. And you'll see the same thing in Workflow Engine. 2025 is a choice on all of your Workflow Engine rules. So that's what I would tell you, Liva. Use that. Use your file started date as a milestone move. Now, You might also use 3142 or the other one that's nobody's using, 1952 or something, the other application date field. 3142, yeah, see, I don't use ms.start. Nope, no way. I would use standard field 2052, but again, 2025, sorry. 2025 is a string field. Okay. 745 is not reliable, Luba. That was the application date field that preceded 3142. So if you don't want to use your start, whatever you want to use for start, the next one to use is 3142, and that will make sure that files that are being disclosed are on your most current milestone template. That's typically the one I run with, especially in seasoned Encompass environments, because Lord knows how old those files are. I want to make sure they're on the most recent milestone template when they go into processing. Yeah, the MS fields are weird. You really want to use log.ms dot whatever. But yeah, and if 2025 is a string field, Candace, thanks for that heads up. They must be doing something funky in Workflow Engine that captures the @ symbol in there. I don't know. Yeah, log.ms.dates. I just, you have virtual fields in Workflow Engine, so ping around with them. That was my topic for today. We're going to continue this over the following weeks in May into June. We're going to go through all of the topics. And hopefully you can get yourself on a great health check and bring the questions, keep the community alive. You guys are awesome for coming today. Thank you. And be well. All right. If I can ever help you out, you know how to find me. I'll be here. Candace adds, DDM uses 2025 correctly. I'm telling you, it's on the server side, Candace. They're keeping secrets from us, Candace. Patty, the hierarchy? You mean like this? You want to take a picture of that? Is that what you mean? I don't know what you're saying. Present the hierarchy. Bring it up in the community. If you have more questions on this from today's recording, bring it up. I'm heading out. I promise to keep these things at 30 minutes. So you guys stay awesome. Thank you.